All right, guys, welcome back. This is part 3 of me reacting to Lauren Southern's documentary, The Whole Truth. And it's almost 11 o'clock at night. And but I could not wait to finish the documentary. I really couldn't. I'm like really into it now and a little emotional about how similar the experiences she's had to what I've had. And of course, she experienced this on a much larger scale than anything that I've experienced. But I think what makes me emotional about the entire situation is that it's just the pattern. And how many people has this happened to? And I know the backlash that I've gotten anytime I've tried to talk about this issue. And anytime I've tried to talk about the things that right wing conservative influencers have done to me over especially the past like year and a half. Um, because after the 2020 election, they took the gloves off with me. And I've been talking about it as it's been happening because it's always been my goal with this channel to document like an authentic human experience. And that human experience sometimes it's going to have highs, it's going to have lows, it's going to have lots of in between stuff. And it's always been important to me to document it. But anytime I have talked about the amount of nonsense that I've been put through by right wing influencers, I feel like it's always been dismissed and it's always been pushed to the side, and people never want to hear it and they never want to confront what their side is doing to people. And I have to say the fact that Lauren has seen similar things to what I've seen, has had similar experiences. And again, hers are much worse than mine because they happened on a much wider scale. It happened on a much larger scale for her. But the fact that the pattern exists for me has been a little validating, if I'm honest. It's lessened the burden. And I hate to say that someone else's pain makes me feel better because it does not make me feel good in any way that she's had to go through this. But to know that it wasn't just me, that does make me feel good. And so I really am deeply grateful to Lauren for this gift. And I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one. I've already chatted with another person who is like in the public eye and has had the same thing happen to her. Well, different players, different names, but again, the same patterns. And so I think that Lauren has given at least like if nothing else comes from this, anyone who's been through something like this can hopefully find some peace because we're not the only ones that have been through stuff like this. And now I know that, and I didn't know that before today. I really didn't know that what was happening to me with some right-wing influencers wasn't it was just what they do. It's how they operate. Anyway, let's jump into it because it's late and we still have a ways to go. But I'm just really excited to see the rest of it. So let's jump in and get started.
Mama, if that's moving up, then I'm moving out.
Karlyn, what do we need to do about journalists?
We need to chase them into the sea today.
True.
Spit out all my coffee crying because Brittany and I are at rock bottom right now. Like, we're rock bottom.
Yeah. The rock bottom where everything's funny.
The only thing that could make this worse is if we were dying.
Yeah. I have a feeling that there's a huge meeting going on beside us of all these men in business suits, and they're probably like, oh, classy young ladies, and then 5 minutes later it's devolved into Kleenexes and crying.
So at this point, obviously, I am like, F everyone. I hate everyone in politics. I'm not going to associate with any of these people. I can't trust anyone.
That's where I'm at right now.
Hunker down, have people that are good around me, people that want to do real work and aren't just sitting here doing infighting and drama and clawing for more fame. So I make a video saying, listen, I'm done with YouTube. I'm just doing documentaries. That's it. What's the biggest issue at this moment? The cultural peak, the mass exodus of people over the Mediterranean, from Turkey, from Morocco. Who is covering that on the ground? Who is actually looking at it from the starting points? Who's going to Turkey to where these people are beginning to walk to get on boats. No one is covering that. It's all just the mainstream media with all of their crazy slants saying every single person coming in is a refugee. There's no bad people, no ISIS members, no economic migrants. And if you question any of this, you're a bigot. Of course, that's never the full story. And Karlyn, George, and I wanted to cover it the proper way with some real nuance and investigation. So we make our pitch, tell everyone we're filming Borderless.
And what are we working on?
We're working on a new porn film, which is going to star.
Stop. It's going to be really good, and it's not porn. Making a website right now.
It's migrant porn.
Look at all these DVDs.
Get wonderful donations from, I'm sure, a lot of people who are still subscribed and watching, and thank you so much. Like that meant a lot, that people still believed in me and wanted me to keep doing documentaries, even if I wasn't doing YouTube as much. And get on a plane, head to Greece, where they've got one of the largest migrant camps in the world.
I want to say this, like I need to go back and like watch some of her other stuff now, because this documentary is really, really good. And so it really does make me curious about her other work. This is the first thing I've ever watched from Lauren Southern. I have no other frame of reference. And so if Lauren Southern just does documentaries for the rest of her life, I am perfectly cool with that. I will donate money to support her, like whatever, man. But I do also want to say, like, I totally get the idea, the mentality she said before, when she was talking about going in the new direction and only doing documentaries, not doing her YouTube channel as much. Like, just that idea of just being done with politics and people in politics, that's exactly where I am right now. I am done with the bullshit. I am just mentally so checked out from it. And I don't want to do media, and I don't want to do these shows. Like, people harass me, like, oh, you go on Tim Pool, go on Tim Pool, go on Tim Pool. Well, first off, I don't think Tim Pool would have me. But, like, I also just, I don't want to go. And that's no shade on Tim Pool, like, whatever. I don't really care. But, like, I just, like, I don't want to go. And people might find that bizarre because they're like, don't you want to grow your channel? I mean, I guess. But I want to grow my channel with the right audience, and I am hopeful that a slower organic growth of the channel will actually be better for its long-term success, rather than trying to go on these shows that I think just, I'm not saying that I'm not suggesting that like all of Tim Pool's audience is bad. They're not. There are many awesome people that watch Tim Pool and really enjoy him, but he also does have a toxic element of his audience. And I think that's by virtue of what he's trying to do. He wanted to appeal to the largest possible audience. And when you appeal to the largest possible audience, you bring in a lot of really toxic element to it, because their money's green too, man. And that's his goal, is to appeal to the broadest possible audience. That's not my goal. I don't want those people in my life. I don't want that energy in my life. I just don't. And so I totally understand, like, F this, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to focus on what I want to focus on. And I think for me, like, I'm trying to figure out exactly what that thing is. And I'm kind of throwing some stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. But I totally understand why she did that, and I appreciate it.
Oria.
On a flight soon, but I figured I'd just kind of show you my packing so far. The boys needed a bunch of equipment, extra propellers and batteries for the drone, more batteries for the Ronin. If you don't know what the Ronin is, it's like it's that thing that holds the camera that makes sure it's all steady shots. So wait, we're gonna put chocolate bars on the end? This is George's fitness plan. Yeah. I'm going on a ridiculously long trip, and I managed to fit all my clothes in there.
Get on a boat, take it over to Turkey, and I'll never forget those nights we spent patrolling the shores, speaking to olive farmers at 3 a.m., sitting in a car until 7 a.m., until sunrise, trying to stay awake, having coffees, pushing each other, stay up, there might be migrants, just waiting on all of these shore banks every day.
We don't even have a bag.
I don't know.
My bag's packed.
They're arguing about which camera is packed more compact, and they're having like a proper row about
Well,
it.
look, his isn't even in the fucking bag. I don't need to engage because I have nothing to prove. Like, yeah, alright.
Terrified, because some of these traffickers have AK-47s, some of them have guns, but we are like determined to get this story. Oh my gosh, we were insane people. Turkey, like, they jail more journalists than North Korea. If you get arrested in Turkey, you are done. And we're sitting there going on migrant trafficking routes, walking with them, filming them, getting ourselves majorly implicated. And we did actually eventually get arrested, and we were facing years and years in Turkish jail, but that is a story for another time. Oh my gosh, we were idiots, but we were idiots with a cause. We were idiots that really, really believed in what we were doing. So we get our reports in Turkey, and we decide we're going to go head up further down the border and check out different locations. It would have been ridiculous o'clock. We're driving in the car, and Karlyn looks at me and says something that really took me back. He said, "Lauren, I need to go back to London." I say, "London? We're in the middle of filming. What the what the fuck are you talking about, Karlyn?" He says, "I need to go meet with Hope Not Hate." Obviously, I'm very taken aback. If you don't know who the group Hope Not Hate is, I of course do, because I've had many run-ins with them. One, they got me banned from Britain, and they got my Patreon account taken down by lobbying the organization. And unfortunately, I met them once after that to confront them about getting my Patreon taken down. So I was very aware of this group. Their nefarious acts, not great guys, ruined many lives of people I enjoyed and my own. So I'm like, "Karlyn, why do you have to meet with Hope Not Hate? What is going on here?" He tells me this organization are blackmailing him, essentially. They are threatening both him and George with jail time, saying they're speaking to the British police.
Oh my
Saying they're
God.
talking with intelligence agencies, that they've connected Karlyn and George with multiple radical events, including the Day for Freedom. They've connected them with the rise of hatred in London and the UK due to working with Tommy Robinson and making Work for Me. And that they're going to use all this information to get them jailed, questioned, put on lists so that they can't travel anymore unless they come and speak to the group and give them information. They're a pressure group. They're a very persuasive organization, and because they're non-government, they can get up to all sort of nefarious stuff. I absolutely believe Karlyn and George, and still do to this day, that they were being threatened. I absolutely believe that. I've met with Hope Not Hate once myself. A lot of you know, but you don't know the actual context, as I mentioned earlier. And right after my Patreon ban, I was invited to meet with them, and I accepted it under the sole condition that I called multiple friends of mine that were in politics. I called Brittany Pettibone and told her about it. And then I called a journalist with Breitbart and told him I was meeting with them. And I intended to record the entire meeting to try to expose that Hope Not Hate had, in fact, lobbied Patreon, because Patreon were not being so upfront about being lobbied, and they didn't want to admit that it was a NGO that pressured them rather than their own policies. So we went to this pub in London, and I have a little camcorder. In fact, I think I have it now. Let me grab it. I would take this everywhere I went, have it hooked to my backpack so that I could record if I needed it, and it also would record audio. So I actually have the footage of that bar that night we met them, of me sitting on the toilet, turning this on and just looking down at it and putting it in my purse and putting it under the table. Unfortunately, of course, not thinking, the audio came out horrendously because it was in my purse under the table. So you can barely hear any of it. I mean, I've still got it to this day, so I'll try to adjust some of it, but you probably won't be able to hear any of it. We got into a yelling match over political disagreements and stormed out of the pub after an hour. Never met with them again. Never again. We had that one meeting, and I actually ended up using it in my court case against Patreon later on. Karlyn and George then tell me, like, "Listen, Lauren, we have to go meet with them. We have to try to smooth things over. We're terrified. We're not going to be able to travel anymore. We're going to go to jail. We don't know how we're going to smooth it over, but there is absolutely no way we're going to compromise you. There's no way we're going to compromise Tommy." And it's important to mention that Karlyn and George were not just working for me at this point. They were working for Tommy. They were working for Stefan Molyneux. They were working for Alex Jones. They were working for a ton of people. And they were like, "Listen, we've told Tommy about it. It's all going to be okay."
They basically just want to know that we're not doing anything. We're not.
If you meet with Joe, be so careful about what you say.
Oh, of course. Well, look what's happened now because of bullshit I've said in the past.
Would they have been recording me when we went in?
If they were, you were super defensive and you were basically just arguing with Nick. So there was no...
You recorded them anyway, didn't you?
Yeah, there was nothing...
I don't have the recording.
Recording when you said what?
There's this left-wing organization called Hope Not Hate in Britain, and they basically like full-time infiltrate the right.
It's a shame.
Unfortunately, all they really care about is the principles of our organising mainstream protests. They said that we were behind everything that happened in Britain.
It's true.
I mean, this kind of reminds me of, you know, I don't have a whole ton of experience directly with this sort of stuff, but it does kind of remind me of how like Brandon Straka was railroaded. And I do think, and you know what, listen, the fact that I think Brandon is shilling for conservatives and that that I do not appreciate how he has treated me, and I've talked about that on this channel after I stood up for him for an entire year when no one else did. That does not prevent me from saying that I think he was absolutely used. Well, not used. I think he was railroaded by the government as it to be an example for January 6th. And so that's just kind of like what I'm thinking about right now with this. I mean, and there's always this stuff going on, and this is, you know, even you know, I know people who, you know, I don't know that we necessarily have these types of groups as much in the, well, obviously the Southern Poverty Law Center did a hit piece on the Mises Caucus. They're like pretty notorious, but you know, I'm more worried about, I was always more worried about being targeted by the government, to be honest. And I kind of, and I know that, you know, my friends, some of my friends in like the anti-CRT space, like they are convinced that the feds are watching them like all the time, which wouldn't surprise me at all. And I guess what I'm just trying to articulate is that like, when you're doing this type of stuff, there is always kind of like in the back of your head, like this is the counterculture, man. This is the counterculture. Like this type of activism is the counterculture. It is anti-establishment, and you will have, you know, people watching you and what you're doing, and it is kind of a little bit of a mind fuck to think about it in that way. But I don't really have much to say on this because I haven't experienced something like this directly. So I just wanted to pop in and like make sure my position was clear.
Joe's, what was his words exactly? I've just had like Guardian and all of them follow me on Twitter.
They're all gearing up to say, if we take down those boys, then the Tommy Robinson will never happen again. Joe said there was a meeting that took place recently where they had 3 files on the table. And it was Tommy Robinson, Karlyn Borysenko, and George. Everything we've ever done, our birth records, every hospital visit we've ever been to, every psychiatric, every au pair we've ever had.
Wow.
Everything you could possibly imagine. Shit from when I was like 10 years old from another country. And they had all these files, and they were like, the hammer has to fall on one of these people, and who allowed this to happen?
It's like they're literally sitting there with the files and a hammer going.
Yeah, like that's how fucking serious it is. And I'm not
to a point where if we carried on with Tommy, say he didn't go to prison and we carried on with him for another 3 months, we would probably be in prison by Christmas.
At this point, all I care about is my movie getting done. And as long as they're not causing any trouble, as long as Tommy knows, as long as they're not actually compromised, I just care about Borderless. That's my baby. That's my project. That's where my focus is. It did get done. It did get filmed. Everything was fantastic. Karlyn and George were risking their lives with me on this trip. I'm sorry, maybe publicly you guys don't believe that they were not compromised, but the guys almost went to jail with me for 5 years. I think I've got a bit of a better insight.
I'd say so.
Fast forward, we're in LA. We're filming
well,
the.
I want to talk about that for a second. Like, if people don't believe her, it's kind of like it is a really privileged position you sit in, watching this as entertainment on the internet, not involving yourself in activism. If you have never involved yourself in this type of thing before, and like, I'm sorry, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up with your opinions. You really don't know what you're talking about. And I say that only to the people who are like, well, bullshit, liar, griftery. Like, those are the people who I just have absolutely no use for because they don't do anything productive. They question everyone who is actually doing anything productive. And it's like, you know, I believe what she's saying. I think she's telling the truth. She's given us no reason to doubt it. She's got like all the receipts. And so if people are still doubting her when she says like, you know, this is what happened. And, you know, I think it's very easy to perceive something one way on Twitter, but it is also incredibly easy for things to get distorted on Twitter of all places. So, you know, for anyone who might still be doubting or complaining or they're leftist, like, the people I take least seriously on the internet are the ones that are constantly screaming about secret leftists that are undercover. It's ridiculous.
Last bits of Borderless, the introduction, conclusion, all of it normal. I'm seriously considering leaving politics at this point because everything is so messy, and so much of my visions of what I thought the conservative political world would be, so many of my visions of how I thought people would be. And, you know, I obviously believed everyone was as passionate and genuine as I was about wanting to change things, about wanting to save the West, all this stuff, right? I had been so black-pilled. A lot of that, you know, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed approach had really died at that point. So I really was seriously considering quitting and taking a step back or changing something. And out of nowhere, while I'm sitting there in my friend's apartment in LA, I get a call. Calls are never good in my life, it seems, from Tommy Robinson, the ghost of Christmas past, right? I'm like, what is Tommy doing calling me? I haven't seen him in ages. I've been banned from the UK, right? Pick up the phone, and Tommy is frantic, saying, Lauren, did you know that Karlyn and George are working for Hope Not Hate?
Oh,
Have you
for
heard of this?
Christ's
You know? And I'm like,
sake.
Tommy, like, what are you talking about? And he's like, he starts telling me, oh, Karlyn and George were talking to Hope Not Hate this day and that day. And I'm like, you know this. I know you know this. We've talked about it before. You know, you've met with Hope Not Hate, Tommy. You've met with Nick Lowe's before. Well, he starts having these conversations with me about Karlyn and George's
Paranoia,
actions
like I said in the first part.
It was a very strange conversation. It didn't seem real because he was talking about a bunch of stuff that he already knew. A bunch of things he already knew, was aware of, and repeating them as if he didn't know them.
So what I suspect, and I could be wrong, but what I suspect is happening, I talked about this in the first part of this reaction series, was that there are a lot of people on the right and content creators that get uber paranoid, and that just they invent stories. Like what they do is they take like a teeny tiny little nugget of truth, and then they invent an entire story to explain that little nugget, and maybe a leaf or two here and there. Like if a tree of a story has sprouted from this little seed, maybe a leaf or two is true, but most of the tree is like bullshit and is literally just a made up explanation. But like when people get this paranoid, they commit to it, and then they build that paranoia into their reality, and it frames everything. And so, you know, this to me sounds like he is uber paranoid, but maybe there's more to it. I could be wrong.
And I got a bit of a creeping suspicion that this was a setup call. It wasn't actually a real conversation I was having with Tommy. So I asked him, Tommy, are you recording this conversation?
He was trying to catch her.
Is there something weird going on here?
He was trying to catch her.
And he goes, no, Lauren, I would never record our conversation. That's bizarre. No, of course not.
He was trying to catch her. He had a suspicion. Here's what happened. I'm betting. Again, I could be wrong. He had a suspicion that something was going on, and he was trying to get her to tell him what was going on. He was trying to catch them in the act through her. That's what it is.
Joke's on me. I didn't think about this for months and months afterwards until it came out that Tommy was, in fact, recording our call.
Yep.
And he was doing it because the BBC were planning a massive cocaine, hookers, I don't know. I never kept up with the whole drama. But essentially, Hope Not Hate were trying to use the blackmail they had on Karlyn to get him to go and do this BBC documentary exposing Tommy. But Karlyn had warned Tommy about the BBC documentary because, as I said, he was telling Tommy the whole time about everything going on. And so Tommy wanted to, by any means necessary, stop this BBC documentary from going to air, including secretly recording people, including getting pre-recordings of the BBC documentaries.
So he wasn't paranoid.
Karlyn helping him out.
It was real.
Wait, pause. You may be wondering why Lucy Brown is helping Tommy at this point.
Yes,
Wasn't
I'm
she
deeply wondering why
betrayed
she's
by
helping him.
Yeah, she was. But when the BBC and Hope Not Hate reached out to her to get her to throw Tommy under the bus for their film, she decided she hated them more than she hated Tommy and approached him with the idea of secretly infiltrating their whole project. I've just included an excerpt from a response she sent to Nick Lowe's from Hope Not Hate when he questioned her as to why the hell would you save Tommy after everything he did to you? Lucy Brown is a lot of things, but an Antifa spy, snake, disloyal, nah, she's none of those.
And it was all just such a mess. The way the BBC were behaving was incredibly unethical, blackmailing people to get subjects in their film, using hope not hate and NG.
Okay, obviously I don't have any experience with the extremes that they're talking about now, but I just want to tell you guys, did you guys know the BBC like threw me under the bus in like a live fucking interview? So this was after the Coke Be Less White story came out, and the BBC reached out to me and they said, "We want to interview you about the Coke Be Less White story." And I was like, "Fine." And they sent me a list of questions, and this interview had to be at like midnight or something because it was like it was like 11 o'clock or midnight because they were taping it really early in the morning for there, and so I had to stay up all day. And the Coke Be Less White thing for me, that like I was doing like a lot of interviews, and so it was at the end of like a full day of like me being interviewed by different media outlets, and I was really tired and I hadn't even had any time to myself, and I'm on the phone with the BBC, and they start and they started off really nice, and then they started peppering me with January 6th questions, and I was like, what the hell? You guys gave me a very specific list of questions, and I basically got into a fight with their reporter because they were trying to throw me under the bus, and basically told her to fuck off and hung up on her. And so I just want to say, like, the BBC, I will never do any interviews with the BBC ever again. Fuck the BBC. They're absolutely unethical. And so I have no problem believing what Lauren's saying in terms of like the BBC behaving horribly. But looks like Tommy wasn't paranoid. I still think the paranoia thing exists on the right, absolutely unequivocally, but still a dick move to try to record her without telling her.
To work with them. That's the reason it never went to air. But then the behavior Tommy was partaking in to try to explain to the public and to try to stop it from getting released was also completely unethical. Like, he included spliced up recordings from my call with him that were completely out of context, where I said, hey, yeah, I met with Hope Not Hate. So did you. And it was just this short meeting in 2017 where we had this massive like blow up confrontation, and I never saw them again, cutting out all the context to that and only including I met with Hope Not Hate, trying to make it seem like there was this giant CIA plot against him, including myself and all these other people that weren't actually involved at all.
You're aware they've been meeting with them regularly?
I've met Joe too before. Yeah, I know that Karlyn and George have met with them before.
Continually met with them? When you was doing your Borderless documentary, Hope Not Hate flew out to Italy to meet them?
I don't know what they were talking about, but for the most part, like, I think they're just afraid of them.
It was all a very, very strange time, but oh my gosh, did that cause the rumor mill to start talking about how I was a secret Hope Not Hate spy? It made me really sad too, because I would have been perfectly willing to speak to Tommy just in an interview on camera and tell him, oh yeah, no, I disagree with what the BBC is doing. I think this is wrong. This is what happened. Tell him the whole story. Would have been completely happy to do all of that. But it can't just be, a complex story of exposing what the BBC did wrong. It had to be a total victory for Tommy, even if that meant destroying the reputations of me and everyone else around him, as long as it was a total Tommy victory. And it was the same shit I had seen over and over and over again, from Milo to Ezra to Faith to the tour managers, over and over again, just people screwing over everyone around them to save their own ass and not telling the full story to their audiences, not explaining what had happened because it's too complicated. So they need a simple story where they're just the good guy and everyone else is villains.
Yep.
And this is the point this has all been leading up to. It's still hard for me to even think about or talk about today, but Borderless is published. It's done really well. People loved the movie. We've had some massive exposés of criminal behavior from NGOs, incredible on-the-ground interviews with human traffickers. It was really a beautiful thing. I'm really proud of that movie. But I'm sick. I'm tired of politics. I cannot stand all of the backstabbing. I cannot stand the behavior, the selfishness, all of it. And I think it's making me a worse person too, because I'm at the point where I can't even talk to people or make friends or trust anyone in this world. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to be like that, right? So I
want to talk about what she just said about not being able to trust anyone. I don't trust anyone anymore. I literally have these training programs, and even if you ever read my first book, it's called Zen Your Work. It's about like mindfulness strategies at work. I talk about how you're supposed to give people the benefit of the doubt. You're supposed to assume positive intent. I have whole training programs for like the workplace that are at least like partially based on this idea of like human beings are generally good. They're generally trying their best. Like you have to assume that they're trying their best, and like I just want to like throw all that out the window based on my experiences in this world. I don't trust anyone anymore. You know, Joshua sometimes, there are certain like so for people who don't know, like I have a life coach, he's an astrologer. We don't just do astrology and psychic stuff. He's on the channel on Tuesday nights as well. But like, we do look at astrology and there are different and astrology are just about like looking at different aspects of your life. Really. It's not just about like the horoscope that you read in the newspaper. And there are certain elements of your chart which are about other people's resources. Sometimes you use your resources. There are elements of a chart about that. And sometimes you use other people's resources, like you get into partnerships or you form coalitions or things like that. So it's not anything nefarious about like taking advantage of people. It's simply about like some things you do by yourself, and sometimes you need partners to do things. That's just the way the world works. And so anytime that Joshua brings up other people's resources now, my first answer is like, nope, 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 not partnering with anyone, not trusting anyone. And I know that's not necessarily good because sometimes partnerships are just the way things have to be done. It's the way things are going to be more successful, but I don't trust anyone. I don't trust anyone. It seems like most of the people that I've trusted in the past 2 years have just stabbed me in the back and used me, and it wears on you after a while. It really does. It's like, I don't want to live a life where I'm suspicious of everyone. I want to generally assume that human beings have positive intent, but I've never encountered a monster like I have in the last 2 years. And again, I'm not comparing my story with hers on terms of scale, but it really does screw with you when I've had people that I've confided in with some of the most personal details about my life that then later, when it was convenient for them to do so, splashed those details of my life all over the fucking internet. I've had people who I trusted, who I've always stood by, just stab me in the back just for clout, because of brand, because of image. I've had people stab me in the back just so they can get on someone's show. I've had people just I can go on and on and on about how awful people are in this space, and it really does fuck with you because it makes it really hard for you to form human relationships with anyone because it's not just about them. It's like I look back at like this, especially over like the last year and a half, and I'm like, my judgment is so fucked. In regards to relationships I have, because it's like I just don't trust myself. I don't trust myself anymore. And I don't want to live like that for the rest of my life. Like, but I don't know what to do about it at this juncture. Maybe it's just about taking a break. I don't know.
I just want to start a family. I was actually married at this point when Borderless was released. Nobody knew that. And my husband and I had decided to have a child. And he's Australian, so I wanted to be able to go to Australia, visit family, of course, and see family. But there was one problem. Because of everything I had done in politics, because of all the activism I had done, South Africa, Borderless, all of it, I had been put on a list called vacuum. It is typically for criminals and terrorists that can't travel to other countries because they've got a record that won't allow them to enter other countries. And I had been put on that list due to my political activism. And it meant that I couldn't get a visa to go to Australia. And I had been advised the only way that I was going to be able to see my family, grandparents of my child, was if I quit politics altogether. So what I kind of expected to be like a slow trickle out, calm down, maybe do a few videos here and there, but settle down out of the political sphere ended up being a full cutoff.
Wow.
Just publish a letter and say goodbye to everyone. Shut down all my social media, shut down my subscription site, all of it instantly. Otherwise, my visa was going to be rejected and I was never going to be able to enter the country. And that's what I did. Right after Borderless came out, published, I'm leaving, I'm quitting. Just a nice little letter I emailed out to people and said goodbye. Said I wanted to focus on family. I didn't talk about why. I didn't tell anyone about the Australia vacuum stuff because that would probably jeopardize my visa too. I couldn't publicly discuss, those government affairs and problems. And I was lucky enough that right after I published that letter, I did get a response that said, your visa's been accepted. You're allowed to visit the country now, but it's on the one stipulation that you have quit politics and you will never violate any of our character assessment standards again.
Wow.
I kind of wanted quitting to be on my own terms, which made me sad because it wasn't on my terms. It wasn't really on my terms. It was on the government's terms. I definitely feel like the end of my political career was stolen from me by that. Sorry. It's really nice to tell people what actually happened. I think a lot of people, especially like a lot of my biggest supporters, they felt very abandoned. They felt like I just disappeared and left them and I didn't give any explanation, but it wasn't because of that. There was a lot more going on in the background that I never spoke about. There are definitely times where
if there are creators that you like and that you value and that you appreciate and they up and leave, as I've seen happen like several times since I've been in this space, but stop making up stories about why. There's so much you guys don't know. And I know I tell you more than a lot of people do, to be honest, because like my life is actually reasonably boring apart from the politics stuff. It's just like the only interesting thing going on in my life happens to be like the thing that I talk about on the internet. And but you don't know everything about my life. You don't know everything about her life. You don't know everything that goes on. No one knows everything about anyone's life. And so just like I hope the lesson that people get from this is like don't make assumptions about why people are always going to read intent into everything, but with major life-changing decisions like leaving, you don't know what's going on and you don't look like a very good person when you make assumptions about what's going on.
I wish I could go back and tell myself never to go to that conference, to just stay in the army. I don't think I would have believed me if I told me what happened.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have believed governments would stop people from entering countries and seeing family just over their political opinions, maybe over terrorism, extremism. Like I can't even visit. It's not even immigration. It's like I can't even visit people that I love anymore in many countries in the world just because of my opinions that are held by most people in these countries. But I didn't think that when it came to career, when it came to how this would affect my family, my friends, I didn't think it would be so extreme or ever get to this point. But that's also part of the reason that I believed in everything I did so much. I could see so much important conversation being stifled, so many people who didn't have a voice and were so afraid. And I wanted to be that voice for people. And being that voice for people obviously had risks that I was willing to take, but probably didn't fully understand when I got into politics. A lot of story to tell, so let's get back to it because it somehow gets worse.
Wow. Twitter is the worst site on the internet. Guys, I'm going to say this, like as someone who has been lied about extensively on Twitter, the world would be a better place and human beings would be better to each other if Twitter was wiped off the face of the earth. I don't know what possesses people to think that this behavior is okay. Like attacking people on your own side. I don't know what possesses people into thinking that this behavior is okay. Stop engaging in pile-ons on Twitter. It's really not that hard. I don't care if you don't like someone. I don't care if you don't agree with someone. It is if you are engaging in a pile-on, you are no better than the woke left. You are no better than any of them. There is no reason to engage in pile-ons ever.
So then I've quit. I published my letter. I'm going to go be with my family. And then I get a text from Milo Yiannopoulos, which, if you've been paying attention so far, is never a good omen. Milo calls on the phone and he's irate about Karlyn and George. And I just don't care at this point. I tell Milo, listen, I'm married. I'm starting a family. I've got these visa issues. I can't talk about anything. I can't be involved in anything publicly. Please just leave me alone. He is so angry, though. He is going off saying, Lauren, you need to help me. You need to do something for me right now. If I were in a room with Karlyn and George, I would put a shotgun in their mouths and I would blow their brains out right now. I hate them and they need to pay. And you are going to help me with it. Lauren, us beautiful people, he would always talk like this. It was so strange. Us beautiful people, if people attack us all the time, they're always after us, aren't they? And Lauren, I have all of this horrible gossip about you from ugly women that are jealous of you. His words.
Oh, for fuck's
and
sake.
I would
That
hate
doesn't
to have to
surprise me
publish
at all,
it
though.
because you didn't want to give me any blackmail on Karlyn and George. All I need from you is a disavowal. All I need is for you to tell me that they stole things from you. They stole from you, didn't they? They stole equipment from you. They scammed you. They're just horrible people, aren't they? And all that kept flashing back into my head was that conversation about Alum I had years ago, where he told me Alum was a secret Antifa spy and this horrible, evil person that needed to be taken out. And all he needed was a little bit of blackmail on him. It brought me back to Margaret. Lauren, don't you remember what an awful person Margaret was? Stole all the privilege grant money. Oh, and then it turns out Milo actually had the privilege grant money. And I was sick of it. I wanted none of it. I was like, Milo, no, I'm not going to give you blackmail on them. They haven't stolen from me. I don't want to be involved in any of this. And half the questions you're asking me are extremely leading and completely untrue. So I just told him, no, Milo, you know what? Write what you will about me. I don't want to be involved in it. I can't. And Milo's like, oh, sweetie, darling, I'll send you an email. Don't worry about it. So Milo sends me an email after, and I want to read you some of the questions in it because it was just insane. It was not journalism, not even remotely. His questions, he says, not in any particular order. When did you first find out Karlyn was stealing from Tommy Robinson? When did you find out they were stealing from Ezra Levant? Did you employ them knowing they'd previously stolen money or engaged in financial fraud, including inflated invoices?
Wow.
How much money did they steal from you? When did you find out they were working with Hope Not Hate? When did you find out they had shared Gavin's location with Antifa? What was your reaction? If the boys stole from you and took advantage of you, even supposing you knew nothing about their activities, why did you continue to employ them? Did they ever threaten you? Do you have any idea why people would say you knew about everything? Did you ever hear?
You know, there were times when certain people that I've been associated with that I thought were my friends. It's not quite what's happening to her in this case, but it just made me think of it. They would get so specific in their language when they were emailing me, when they were texting me, when they were DMing me. And the first time it happened, I kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt. And I was like, this is a really weirdly worded message. Really weirdly worded. But I answered it believing they were acting in good faith. And those are always the messages that are screenshotted and shared around later. Because there is a reason they're being really specific in their language, is they're doing it to try to trap you so that they can use it against you later when they feel like having their little online expose. And sometimes they make it into the most successful video that is on their channel because the rest of their content is absolute shit. And those who know who I'm talking about know exactly who I'm talking about. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, you don't need to worry about it.
Here, Karlyn put a tracker in Tommy Robinson's car. It wasn't, did they steal? It was, when did they steal? How much did they steal? Milo even had accused them on the phone. He said, did they steal all the Australia money? Obviously, my reaction was, this is nonsense. First of all, Karlyn and George wasn't even in Australia. Karlyn came and didn't get paid anything. The tour managers stole all the money. So I knew Milo was just taking shots in the dark, trying to get as much dirt on these guys as possible. I didn't fully understand why Milo hated them so much. All I knew was that anyone who crossed Milo, even for completely legitimate reasons, had their lives absolutely destroyed or attacked by him. And once again, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. So I just said, listen, if you send me proof that they doxed Gavin and shared his location with Antifa, if you show me proof that they put trackers in his car, if you show me proof for any of this theft, any of it, I'll disavow it. Of course, Milo, of course. But he never sent me any, nothing.
Yeah, isn't that always the way it goes?
Nothing. Never sent me a stick of proof. In fact,
you know, supporters of mine have actually tried really hard to get some of the people who have been like bullying and harassing me for the last year and a half, and have put out all this public bullshit, all this public nonsense. And sometimes my supporters will message them privately, and they usually don't tell me when they're doing this. They're like doing like a covert operation, and they try to get proof of the things that these people say I did. And this has been going on for a year and a half. My supporters have yet to get one shred of actual evidence against me. And they've actually tried. They've really, really tried. So it's basically just people spewing shit on the internet. They provide no evidence for what they're saying. And of course, I'm not allowed to defend myself, because if I defend myself, I'm creating drama. Why would you engage in drama, Karlyn? I'm defending myself from lies being told about me on the internet, but you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. They're allowed to lie with impunity. They're allowed to spew bullshit all over the internet. They're allowed to make videos lying about you. And they don't even need evidence. They don't even need any hard evidence that you did anything that they claim that you did. It's all conjecture. It's all just stuff that can be so easily taken out of context, and smart people know what they're looking at. But if you defend yourself, if you speak up and say, hey, this is bullshit, and I really you're lying about me, that's not allowed. That's not allowed. And so then you sit in this hell for a while that I'm like a never ending hell, really, because there is no end. Like, once lies get told on the internet, those lies are, drop my knitting stitch marker, I'll get that in a second. Those lies are true forever. And when I say true, I mean it in quotes. It's like true. Because you can't defend yourself. Because if you are damned if you do, you are damned if you don't, and people believe it without looking for any other information. And most people don't even think to ask for actual evidence, because they just like the drama of it. They just want to be entertained. And the people who are spreading the bullshit know that, because the spreading of the bullshit becomes the only way that they are able to maintain relevance.
I later found out there was a guy who sent me a DM on Instagram. He said, Milo messaged me and told me I needed to write to him saying Karlyn and George stole from me. And he tried to leverage the fact that he let me write for his website Dangerous once, and said, you owe me one. So I need you to write a message saying Karlyn and George stole from you for his article. And he said, I've never met Karlyn and George. I've never worked with them. I've never used their equipment before. How could they have stolen from me when I've never known them? But once again, Milo did not care about the facts involved. Even if there were nefarious things that Karlyn and George did, it wasn't, Milo wouldn't have cared. It wouldn't have been enough. He has to lie in everything he does. Oh, it was just so insane. So I was just so sick of it. I was like, I'm not going to disavow them. I'm not going to throw them under the bus for you. I don't know what you've got up your sleeve. If you hate them, that's between you and them. Leave me out of it. He called me multiple times, threatened me multiple times. I begged him, just leave me alone. I've got my family stuff. I just want out of this world and your world. I remember the last, I got one last text from him before never speaking to the man again, which said, Lauren, I'm giving you one last opportunity to throw Karlyn and George under the bus. And I actually have a screenshot of that text. He knew fully what he was doing. He wasn't trying to get information to expose the truth to the right wingers. I gotta get the truth out there, right?
It's never about the truth.
I'm gonna threaten you and you're gonna throw these people under the bus for me. Throw them under the bus, those words directly. So I can destroy their life because they crossed me. That's all. That's what it was.
Yep.
Of course, I have no interest in that. But unfortunately, a lot of fucking people in politics do. They're willing to throw anyone and everyone under the bus to keep Milo off their ass, to keep anyone off their ass, to save their career.
Yep.
At this point, I
or
wasn't
to gain
working
relevance.
with Karlyn and George anymore. They were off doing work for Stefan Molyneux. They were working with Alex Jones. They were working with Tommy Robinson, although probably half and half behind the scenes at this point. And I then saw they were working on a film called You Can't Watch This. And I asked Karlyn about it. I was like, what is going on with this Milo stuff? Why is he contacting me? And Karlyn just sent me a text from Milo saying, it probably has something to do with this. I wish I could say the start of all of this wasn't so fucking petty as to be ridiculous. I wish I could say it was over something serious. I wish I could say all of this actually were about Karlyn and George working for Hope Not Hate.
No, it's always petty. It's always petty. Like, oh my God. Like, I don't even know what this is yet, but I absolutely believe that this started over some stupid, petty bullshit because it is always petty. Like, I have not this is part of why I'm so blackpilled right now. Yes, I'm getting a little triggered. I'm not angry or anything. I'm having some feelings right now. But like, part of the reason I'm so blackpilled is because everything in this space is so fucking petty. Everything in this space is so petty. Everything. It is like toddlers. It is like children. And the fact that these are the people running the country should give absolutely every single person pause. Because the people that, like, just wrap your heads around this for a second. Milo Yiannopoulos is currently interning for Marjorie Taylor Greene. The people she's talking about, the space that she's talking about, are quite literally the people running the country, and I don't think it's any better on the left than it is on the right. I don't think that they're the paragons. I don't think that they lack their pettiness either. I'm sure it is exactly the same, although I do find the left to be petty about different things than the right is. The right is usually, again, like much more personal. But that doesn't mean it's not petty. And these are the people who are literally running the country, and that is why everything is fucked up and everything is going wrong. They're bad people. It is a bad space.
Hate and betraying people on the right wing, because then at least I would have some faith, a smidge of faith in the right wing. It is ludicrous to make a movie like this without me in it. A joke. I am patient zero for everything. No. Also, go fuck yourself, you treacherous slime bag. Your day in the barrel is coming. I am coming for you. You will not know when or how, but I am coming for you. That is an actual message Milo sent Karlyn and George. An actual message. Simply because he was not included in a film they were making for Alex Jones.
Of course.
That's all.
Yep.
Much like the Australia tour, much like the stuff with Alan, much like the stuff with Margaret, if you don't include him, if he is not the #1 feature in everything, your day in the barrel is coming.
And this is not just Milo. What you guys need to understand, this is not just Milo. It's not everyone in the space, but it's a lot of people. This is not just Milo.
Absolutely insane, psychopathic behavior. And so their day in the barrel did come. And mine too, apparently, as I refused to throw them under the bus. Milo published an article called Say Farewell to the Klepto Queens of the Far Right, in which every ridiculous accusation he wrote in that email to me that never got any confirmation or any proof to it, he published as fact. He published just as 100% fact in this piece. I knew within the first minute of reading this article, it was complete nonsense. If I went through all the accusations in this article, it would be another 4 hours of this video, but I could easily go through and debunk 99% of the things, at least anything I was involved in. So like one email says that the boys stole $10,000 from me and they put a screenshot saying, hey, we're missing $10,000 in travel expenses. But if you actually read the full email, you'll see at the bottom it says receipts. We're missing the receipts. We need to get them in so we can file them for tax season, which is completely reasonable and what every properly operating business does. So that's just how Milo would operate. He'd take one piece of evidence and say, look, I've got this one piece of evidence, and then extrapolate a ton of stuff that didn't happen. But as long as he had that one reference that people didn't read into that much, he could pretend it was a receipt for all of the lies he would write.
I cannot tell you how many times this has happened to me with people in the space doing this exact thing to me, where they take one piece of evidence and then create a whole story around that piece of evidence and conveniently leave out any evidence or any part that might contradict the story they're trying to tell. Pretty much every bullshit video you see about me from someone that has actually known me is this right here. It is taking one thing that there may be a nugget of truth in that thing, but it's usually twisted, contorted beyond all relevance to what actually happened. And if there's evidence to the contrary claim that they're making, they never will show it. They clip things out of just that like that fucking I Hypocrite video that got made about me like a couple weeks ago. They clipped a clip out of context where it looked like I was threatening Carrie Smith with violence. What they didn't show you is I said, I will beat the shit out of you, paused for a second, and then I said, I wouldn't really do that, but that felt really good to say. They cut that part out, just said, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. And to be really honest, I really wanted to beat the shit out of her when I said that. But then I paused and I said, I wouldn't really do that because I wouldn't really do that. And like, but it felt really good to say. And it was like, if you have the context, then it looks like something very different than what they presented it as. But did they have that in? No, they didn't. Of course not. That would completely drag their entire story. So why would they leave it in? And it sounds like this is the same thing happening here. Anytime you hear stuff about people on the internet that makes them sound like insane people, you know, I really do believe that most people are just trying to do a good job. And if you have someone that's purposefully doing an expose on someone, it's usually bullshit, dude. It's usually bullshit. And you should really keep that in mind. And why people on the right do this to people on their own team? Because they're losers who can't achieve anything in real life. And so they simply attack people on their own team because they're too much of a pussy to go out and actually fight back and do something real. And yeah, I'm looking at you, I Hypocrite. I am.
There was another bit where he had an email. There were late rentals, late returns. And he said, look, they defrauded all these rental companies. And it's like, no, they were late returning stuff to the rental companies. I've done that a million times. Anyone who works in film is like, oh, shoot, we went over 5 hours with filming. We'll return it in the morning. And you get a late notice. It was just like absurd how scorched earth he was going, to the point that he's just lying. Anyone who was involved in the article or was quoted knows it was a lie. Lucy Brown, who is cited in the piece, spoken to her a million times. She couldn't believe what came out after she spoke to Milo. She couldn't believe how much her words were twisted. Spoke to Alex Jones after the piece was released, and he apologized and said, I can't believe all of this was written about you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm probably never going to have Milo on the show again after witnessing this, which is probably kind of sweet justice, as that first meeting that I had with Milo in Los Angeles, the advice he gave me in 2015 was to never go on Alex Jones's show. That's just a random little tidbit. There was only one part of this article that I really hope was true, because it's funny as shit if it is. But Milo claims that Karlyn and George doctored all of Tommy Robinson's videos to make him have a chipmunk voice, which is hysterical if real. But that's a very funny accusation. But now one thing I really want to hit on is, you'll notice most of this article is about how Karlyn and George screwed over Tommy Robinson, how they were stealing from him, ruining his life, trying to get him killed, trying to dox his family, all this stuff. And Tommy never said anything publicly to deny this, right? In fact, I think Milo may even have a bit in the article where Tommy says it's all true. So if you think this video is all just about how Milo fucked up, Tommy is not off the hook here either, because this was some pretty, I think it was pretty awful to this day that he didn't come out and say this was a lie. The real tea is Tommy loved working with Karlyn and George, and he was pissed when he got out of prison and Karlyn and George were off filming Borderless with me. He was thinking, who's going to film my videos? Who's going to work with me? You are my crew. You have made me successful. You are mine, not Lauren's crew. It wasn't the case that it was like Karlyn and George are Lauren's personal crew and Tommy was trying to get rid of them no matter what. No, it was the opposite. Tommy would show up to Karlyn and George's house with suitcases of cash, begging them to come back and work for him. But they didn't want to do it anymore because it was too much fucking drama. Way too much drama. They just wanted to do documentaries with me and potentially even work their way out of politics altogether. They were never particularly political people. They just liked doing art stuff. They liked doing movies. So Tommy still, even when this article was published, was still trying to work with Karlyn and George, yet allowed the perception of them being these horrible villains to persist to keep his reputation as the victim. Milo alleges that the reason Tommy kept working with them and was still working with them when the article was published was because they were blackmailing him and threatening him. It's Tommy Robinson. You know, you think two gay guys are threatening Tommy Robinson and forcing Tommy to do videos with them? The whole idea is just absurd.
Karlyn Robinson, who stole £20,000 Bitcoin and was sacked by me. Yeah? Karlyn Robinson, with no evidence or nothing, is their source of information for all of these allegations. So I sit and read the allegations, and I'm not stupid. One of them is about prostitution, cocaine. Now, I know what's coming. I know a headline's coming across all the national media, Tommy Robinson prostitutes cocaine. I know it's coming. That's where the money went. That's where the money went. Yeah?
A few weeks after this article was published, they were in a studio filming all together. I have the footage of it. Tommy, Karlyn, and George all together, smiling, laughing, joking. Karlyn, in fact, has sent me thousands of messages between the two of them, all post this article being published in which they were exposed as blackmailing, trying to kill Tommy, everything, of Tommy begging them to do work together, saying, hey, we're going to do this project, we're going to do this book, we're going to film this and that.
Book, once I've done the grooming documentary, call it The Rape of Britain, and we use easy meat statistics and we update them for the current date. That's the book idea, mate.
I can't do Monday. I'm not in. Maybe we just get the warehouse done and cool. I'll ring her in a bit. Can we book it for as early as possible? All right, yeah, 11's still cool then. We can still do, yeah, still do 11. Yeah, cool. Well, I've done the same. Yo, good morning, bro. Sorry, mate, it's chasing you on that thing. I want to watch it. Karlyn, remember we had the screenshot, bro. Karlyn, you know the photo you... Yeah, don't matter, bro. Yeah. Yeah, all right, bro.
It's the same thing since dot one of meeting the three of them. There had been too much shit that had happened publicly. Tommy had blamed them for too much of his problems, much like Lucy Brown, made them the scapegoat for everything, but didn't have a good enough film crew to replace them, so kept begging them to work with him privately behind the scenes while lying to his audience, pretending they weren't working together. And they were these horrible, awful traitors. And it was the most disgusting shit. It was so disgusting to watch. I mean, Tommy had his reasons, but to me, they're still inexcusable. So when people look at me today and they're like, oh, but can't you see that Karlyn and George are these awful traitors that went and worked for the left wing and they went and exposed all these right wingers and, you know, now they're working for this huge left-wing media company? I'm not surprised.
Nope.
It doesn't surprise me. They were so screwed over and treated horrendously by everyone they worked for in media. You'll notice they don't really say much about me, right? And they were never particularly political. They weren't these like big, like, yes, I'm a huge right-winger, let's fight for the fight. They were just artists that got into this world of politics and decided, holy shit, there's no way we're staying in here. Everyone's blackmailing each other. Everyone hates each other. If I don't include this one gay guy in a movie, he wants to kill me with a shotgun. Why the hell would they want to stay in right-wing politics? And this is the real hard pill that people have to swallow. You can't just call people traitors that you run out of your own movement. You can't just sit there and claim to be a victim of Karlyn and George after you spread a bunch of rumors about them, you lie about them, you make them hate every single thing about the right, and then pretend you're the victim. It's like, until the right can accept that they are chasing people away, it's not going to grow. It's not going to get better. And it's certainly not going to get better when they're chasing away the only artists in their movement.
And
what have I told you guys a million times? I gotta tell you, so that clip right there where she's like, the right needs to accept that you can't call people traitors after you chase them out of your movement. Someone sent me that clip the other day when this film came out, and that's the thing that got me to watch it, because I feel like I've been screaming the same thing to the right for the last year. Every time I've been like, why the fuck are these influencers attacking me? Why the fuck are these influencers attacking me? I don't even know you. I've literally never I have never spoken to Cassandra Fairbanks. I have never spoken to Ian Miles Chung. I have never spoken to Matt Walsh. But they steal my shit, attack me relentlessly, support people who have literally posted pictures of my house on Twitter. So when I saw that clip, someone sent it to me, and I just played it over and over and over again, and I was like breaking down crying the other night, because I was like, holy shit, someone said it. Someone that's not me said it. And there were times when I really still wanted the right to win. I did. I wanted the right to win because I hate the left, and the left has fucked everything up, and you know, they're awful, awful, horrible people, but at the same time, the right isn't any better. And if they're the ones attacking me, the left doesn't attack me. The left just sits back. I literally wrote a book about fighting the woke left. The left doesn't attack me, because they just sit back and they watch the infighting on the right, and they're like, "What? We don't need to do anything. Our work is done. Let's let the right go after her," because they do it all the time. The content creators on the right, the influencers on the right. And I feel like I've been screaming into a void for the past year and a half, saying, if you keep treating people like this, you are not going to win. They are not going to vote for you. They're not going to help you. They're not going to support you. I went out of my way and turned my life on its head to support the right in 2020, doing things that most of them refused to do themselves. I wore a MAGA mask everywhere just to show them that it was safe to wear a fucking MAGA mask or a MAGA hat. Not that I was total rah-rah MAGA, because I never really was. Like, I had moments where it was like really fun, but I was like never rah-rah MAGA. The reason I was wearing a MAGA mask around and like through every airport and every, like, the MAGA mask, I firmly believe to this day, is the thing that got the hotel staff to come at me, because they were weird as soon as I walked into that hotel. It started the moment I walked in, before I even said anything to anyone. And I know how to identify this, because we had problems in several hotels with us like wearing that sort of stuff in 2020. It was just like, it was a constant problem. But I didn't do it because I was rah-rah MAGA. I did it because I wanted to show people on the right that there was nothing to be afraid of. I was trying to be a role model in that regard. And you know, I did things that they were not willing to do themselves, and none of it was good enough. None of it was enough to save me from having their influencers try to destroy my life and having people believe them. Oh, she's just from the left. She went back to the left. Cassandra Fairbanks, we showed her in the last video saying, why don't you just go back to the left, when I'd already actually left to become a libertarian, where I fit in better anyway. The libertarians don't do this shit to each other. Well, no, that's not true. Some of them do. That's actually really not true. The libertarians have their own little loser brigade. So I shouldn't say the libertarians are not kumbaya by any stretch. They have their own drama as well. But It makes me so sad that the right doesn't get this. Maybe hearing it from Lauren will wake them up in a way that I simply wasn't able to because I was never a conservative. Maybe I tend to doubt it. I think, I don't know, but I hope, I really hope, I hope maybe hearing it from her, when people see influencers doing this bullshit, they will stop supporting them. Because again, like Lauren says she's not mad at the audience. I am. I am. Because the audience is allowing themselves to be manipulated. The audience isn't asking questions. The audience isn't demanding receipts. The audience is going on Twitter and having a great old time dogpiling on people who have done nothing wrong. So the audience is to blame, so far as I'm concerned. Just to be really real with you guys, I have absolutely no interest in helping anyone on the right. I have no interest at all because of what's been done to me. And why would I? I have been put through hell and back. Not anywhere close to what she's experienced or what these guys have experienced, because again, it was like they're on a whole other scale. But I understand it. I understand it. There is no loyalty to anyone on the right. They don't deserve support. They don't deserve anyone sticking up for them. They don't deserve anyone having their back, because this is how they treat them when they do. And it makes me really sad to say that. I used to care who won. I used to care. I used to feel very strongly that the only hope we have is if the right could turn it around and start shifting culture back in the other direction. And now I know that that is just not true. And I wish I didn't have this perspective. I wanted to help the right. I wanted to help them. And then I was attacked by their influencers over and over and over again, called a secret leftist for a photo I took when I was still a Democrat that I was always upfront about, raked over the coals, lied about, smeared, have had private messages plastered all over the internet, have had lies all over the internet, have had people try to break up my marriage, have had people dox me, post pictures of my house, dox my friends, try to ruin my career, try to sabotage my book deal, try to ruin the careers of my friends just for associating me, gone after the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire for supporting me. That's all come from the right. That didn't come from the left. It came from the right. So I feel like I'm entitled to have my anger. And I'm really grateful that Lauren told this story so that I know that I'm not alone. And that doesn't take away what happened to other people either. And I wish it hadn't. I wish the right would cut this bullshit out. But to have another person talking about it and defending these guys, she could be sacrificing her career right now to defend a couple of guys behind the camera that no one had ever heard of, or that few people had ever heard of. That's integrity. Good for her.
I just want to touch on this once more, editing, because I know a lot of you will probably go to the media and look up Karlyn and George and wonder what have they done since. And yeah, they have absolutely gone and done exposés on the right at this point. They have both come out and said they hate it all. It was just full of cocaine, hookers, and scam artists. They've obviously gone to the media and done this stuff now. And yeah, they did experience and witness a lot of that stuff. So they're not even lying. I told them at the time, I remember when they initially just said, F it, we're leaving politics and we're turning against the right. I said, don't do it, guys. This is just going to confirm in people's minds that you guys were actually the traitors the entire time. But at that point, they genuinely did just dislike the right. It wasn't false. At that point, it had grown to such a point where they're like, this is just an awful movement. And I hate to say, they had a very human reaction.
They weren't activists like I was. Not everyone can sit in silence for years being slandered like I did to protect the reputations of people in a political movement because you still have these ideals about this cause you were fighting for. So still to this day, even though they came to dislike the politics, even though they came to dislike what I did and what I still do and are working against it, I understand why. I understand why.
You cannot treat people like trash and expect them to stand by you. You cannot try to destroy people's lives and expect them to stand by you. If there is one message that I really hope that the right gets from this, it's that if you treat people the way that you have been, this is the logical end result.
I said I get through this, and I'm going to get through this. One day. I got this. Remember when I mentioned that text from Milo where he said, I have one last chance. One last chance to throw Karlyn and George under the bus. Well, I got to give the man credit. He has follow through for his threats, right? He told me, I've got a bunch of gossip from ugly women, his words, that are jealous of you. And I would hate to put it in my article, Lauren, but just going to have to do it if you aren't willing to throw Karlyn and George under the bus. I guess my one crime in politics was I was one of the few people that just wouldn't over my support staff over and over again to save my own career.
Yes.
Should have learned my lesson. But yeah, he definitely followed through with that threat. And if you get to, I don't know, halfway through the article, he begins with his discussion of Lauren Southern and how I was involved in all of this fraudulent behavior, how I was all part of the plan, secretly talking to Hope Not Hate, but even worse, everything I did was a lie. Everything I did wasn't actually me. It was all written for me by men that I was blackmailing and
wow.
sleeping with. Is there any more of a classic go-to attack a woman thing you can grasp onto than nothing she did was her own and she fucked her way to the top? I'll give him that. I'll give him credit for picking the most hard-hitting attack you can get on the right towards a woman, right?
It's the truth.
Really twisting the knife point of this bit was where he says, Alan Bokhari was the one who ghost wrote all of my stuff, and that I was blackmailing Alan Bokhari.
Wow.
Now that wouldn't really hit anyone the same way reading that article, other than people who knew about what had happened with Alan at the beginning of this
pure
video.
Woke projection.
That it was in fact the opposite.
Ironclad law.
Milo was blackmailing Alan, and Alan was writing all of Milo's content. But he knew he could get away with saying the exact opposite in this piece, and that I could not respond.
Ironclad law of woke projection. I hope you all really, really, really pay attention to this.
A little extra dagger to the back there, right? So, of course, Alan was kind enough to send me a text after this article went up and said, Lauren, obviously none of this is true. Do you want me to say something publicly? And at the time I said, let's just ignore it. I don't think anyone's going to care. It's Milo. There's no evidence. I was a bit wrong. A lot of people did care for some reason. But Alan did eventually publish a tweet saying that this was all nonsense and lies, which was extremely kind of him, like a stand-up guy, really stand-up guy. And then the rest of the men that Milo alleges I slept with for content were all anonymous. They were all an anonymous source. An anonymous source says, which we all know what an anonymous source means in a Milo article. It means Milo's imagination. And just what he wanted to be in the piece. But that pissed me off. It really pissed me off because so many people believed it. And I'd like to think that anyone who read this article could go to my YouTube channel and click top videos and see that the vast majority of my most popular videos are streeters live. Would have been impossible to sleep with someone to write them for me, but you know, that's the best accusation you can go with.
No, because again, like just to reiterate something she says earlier, the right doesn't check for proof. They don't. I literally today had someone say on Twitter to me, well, don't you support critical race theory and aren't you a defender of the public schools? I'm like, I literally wrote a book about being against all that. I literally wrote a book about, well, I just don't know if I can trust you. Are you fucking kidding me? I do streams every Friday on my channel, have for 2 years, about woke indoctrination training. Every single Friday for 2 effing years. Well, I just don't know if I can trust you. This is every day of my life. All because people on the right don't check for facts. They don't look at what people are actually doing. They just spread rumor around like they're gossiping with their friends on a Saturday, and they think that this is okay. And it's not okay. You guys are impacting real people's lives when you do this.
For trying to take down, especially a woman on the right. She has no ideas of her own. She slept her way to the top, all of that. Oof. Made me so mad, especially knowing, and Milo would have known this too, couldn't respond to any of it. Milo must have a really low estimation of his readers, because he literally insinuated that I may have slept with my gay video editor for my scripts, George, Kaylyn's partner. In truth, George is a wonderful writer, and I would send my scripts to him to correct, and he'd send me quite catty notes back about what I did wrong and right in them. And absolutely, every single person in politics has people they send notes to, has people that help them with their writing. No shot. Obviously, Milo knows this, having Alum ghostwrite all of his stuff, but I have a very, very, very small pool of people that I respect enough to help me edit my work. Kaylyn and George absolutely would help edit my projects. And I had one really good friend that would help me with speeches and work, and a girlfriend of mine that would assist as well, but not one of them that I ever slept with. Not one. In fact, it's kind of become a running joke now when I have a friend edit my script. If I'm talking about dollars with the amounts, I'll just say I'll give you 100 secs to do a look over of my work today. So it's become a bit of a joke now, but obviously at the time it was really, really infuriating to see all my work undermined like that. One thing that made me extra emotional about this bit of the article was I had spent so much time in my life standing up for men who were falsely accused. Men who are falsely accused of rape, of nefarious actions, whatever it may be, mostly based on the argument of innocent until proven guilty. We need to look at the evidence. And to have all of these red pill YouTubers, Meninists, MGTOW, MRAs, make videos coming out just uncritically believing everything that had been said about me, that pissed me off, you know?
According to an article released by the now very desperate Milo Yiannopoulos on his website dangerous.com, Lauren's 2 gay employees and cameramen, Karlyn Robertson and George Llewellyn John, were involved in all sorts of fraudulent money-making schemes and risky backstabbing behavior, which Lauren Southern was clearly aware of during the filming of her documentary Borderless. Simply put, Lauren milked the majority of her thirsty fans for a few years and could now afford to burn out in the world of politics and retire early with the money she had made off her naive fans.
You know, again, and I don't want to make light of what they've put Lauren through, because I think that, like, it's absolutely heinous and disgusting, but I have to say, for like the amount of videos I've had made about me saying the same thing, she grifted on the MAGA movement for a couple of years, and now she's pointless and irrelevant, and oh my god, like, it really, watching this is giving me a lot of perspective. It really is. And so I'm sorry that other people had to experience things that were really bad and, like, ridiculous for me to gain this perspective. I feel really actually bad about that. I feel bad about well, I guess I've said it before in this I feel bad about feeling glad that I know other people have been through extremely similar things. That makes me feel like an awful person to say it, but it is also like, you know, if you have people talking shit about you, and even if they're spreading horrible rumors, and even if people believe those rumors, you're not the only one that's ever been through that. And, you know, I think the lesson, I'm actually like pretty inspired by how Lauren was able to focus on other things and not, I probably have retaliated again too much against people who have spread bullshit about me on the internet. I probably have. Um, but I guess I just don't know what else to do sometimes because it feels like everything I've worked for through my whole life has just been destroyed by idiots on the internet over fucking clout. And it's like, when I was just trying to do the right thing. And so I guess sometimes I don't know how not to retaliate when that happens.
So here's what a lot of people don't realize is so much of the political is personal. When you see videos about Lauren Southern was a fraud, there's a good shot that that person feels scorned by me in one way or another. And it had absolutely nothing to do with them genuinely believing these things and everything
Right.
to do with them wanting a chance to take a shot back at me. because
Exactly.
They're upset with me.
Exactly.
Typically because I didn't date them or didn't sleep with them.
Or didn't leave your
That's
husband
just
for
a
them.
sad reality. Let me take you back to filming Borderless a few years. I remember sitting at a cafe in Vienna, and there's this one YouTuber named Squatting Slav TV. And it was the creepiest thing ever. I had posted a photo of a napkin and a cup at a cafe, and I come out from the bathroom at the cafe to go back to my seat, and I see this man standing there looking down at his phone and looking up at the sign above the cafe, looking at the napkins and looking around, and then he sees me and like zeroes in and starts making a beeline for me. I look up and I'm like, who is this guy? What is he doing here? He looks down, he's like, hello? Are you Lauren? Are you Lauren? Oh, I'm Squatting Slav TV. And like asks me to sit at my table with me. And I can see he found where I was in Vienna by looking at my Instagram story and finding the label on the napkin to stalk me to come and try to have lunch with me. It was the creepiest thing ever. And I told him, of course not. Please, like, leave me alone. This is really creepy and weird. And after I said no to him and said, I don't want to have coffee with you after you've stalked me to a cafe in Vienna, I started seeing this guy come out with all of these videos about how I'm a horrible, evil con artist.
Yep. Half of the videos that are made about me are legitimately made by people who are pissed off that I blocked them on Twitter. People I don't know, people I have never spoken to, and they whine and cry all the time because they're upset that I blocked them on Twitter. That is real. It happens every single day. And it's just like, I don't know how these people are functioning human beings. You're going to get that upset over someone blocking you that you don't know. You have never had any direct contact with in your life. I saw someone tweeting today, like this psycho bitch that she is one of the key instigators of like spreading bullshit around me around the internet. And she always responds to like the libertarian accounts. Anytime the libertarian accounts support me. And today, like the chair of the Libertarian National Party was tweeting about how she was supporting my campaign for governor and Jeremy's campaign for Senate. This bitch responds going, she's going to betray you. She has betrayed her other associates like me. I was like, we were never associates. Like, never in any reality have I been an associate with you. I don't know you. I've never even spoken to you like in person. I would never be an associate with you because you are a legitimately insane person on the internet that just spends all her day stalking Twitter replies. It is absolutely unhinged behavior, but this is what they do all day, every day. And people say, just ignore it, just ignore it. Well, it's kind of hard when, again, it's like, I probably should do a better job of ignoring it, but it's really hard when they are literally stalking the replies of other people to look for opportunities to smear you and defame you because they are upset that you blocked them on a social media platform when you don't even know them.
I didn't even find it until now, but he actually even sent me a DM saying, Lauren, can we hang out in Vienna? Where are you? But think about how up that is. This is once again one of these situations where this person who exudes this personality of I care about the red pill, I care about what the truth you the people need to hear, actually bases all of their politics off of their own personal experiences. And whether they attack someone or not has nothing to do with whether they're doing good work, whether they're actually trying to get out there and tell the truth, but has everything to do with whether they feel personally scorned or not. Whether they can make money, whether they can get sex off something.
So
it's all about
fucking
them.
true.
That's what they base their politics on. Anyways,
so
speaking of scorning
true.
people, as I mentioned, Milo would always get his quotes or blackmail from someone who he felt would give him information, like when he called me about Alum, when he called Faith about me, right? It's who are the people that hate this person that are going to give me the worst, most exaggerated false interpretation that I can get to publish in my article or ruin their career. And I'll just read some of these interesting quotes. He got Laura Loomer, for example, who said, speaking of me, it's a shame that her quest for fame and fortune overrode loyalty to those who facilitated the rise in her career. Then there's Faith, who, of course, stated Lauren didn't know or care what they were doing of Karlyn and George, with Milo stretching her words to make the implication that Southern was in on it. This giant Antifa plan, right? And lastly, he quoted a former friend who is unidentified, who states, trust me, she knew about everything. Why do you think she's quitting journalism? Who retires at 26? Her retirement isn't about making babies. It's about dodging bullets. Now, this former friend is almost 100% Milo Yiannopoulos, because of course, and this is what makes it extra insidious, Milo knew why I was quitting. He knew I was quitting because of my family. He knew I was quitting because I needed my visa. And he knew I couldn't respond to any of this. So he knew he could make comments as sick as this to say the opposite of what had actually happened and completely get away with it. To wrap this stuff up, like, this may not seem like a big deal to people watching because obviously it's old news. No one's really talking about that crazy article years ago anymore. But at the time, it was huge. Everyone was talking about it. I had massive figures with hundreds of thousands of views talking about how it was this Antifa spy. It was all over Twitter. I couldn't respond to anything, but my whole Twitter timeline was all these people who were previously fans saying, how dare I betray the entire movement? Even when I made my coming back video saying, hey guys, I've returned to politics, not saying much because I was worried about my visa status. Everyone in the comments, thousands of comments of people saying, we know you screwed over Tommy Robinson. We know you did X, Y, Z. So many people believed this.
Again, I'm not going to compare the scale of what we're talking about, but it's really similar with like the white identitarian stuff. It's like people saw Cassandra Fairbanks's nonsense. They saw Ian Miles Chung's nonsense. They assumed I was lying. They assumed I had returned to the left. They were told incorrectly that I was calling everyone a white supremacist, which I never did. Like, I literally have yet to see any receipts of me saying that everyone on the right is a white supremacist, although I hear that I said this all the time. I never did. I was talking about the legitimate identitarians that I documented in the second part of this reaction, and I've documented many times on this channel. Like, I was talking about like legitimately bad people, and you know, people like Ian Miles Chung, Cassandra Fairbanks, and all of their fucking cronies made it out to seem like I was calling everyone on the right racist when I wasn't, and I still hear about it to this day. All these people that had supported could benefit, to be honest, doing completely dismiss it because they were lied to by their influencers and they don't stop, and it's like they still hang on to this shit. And it is not a small deal when you are like, and again, hers was a much bigger scale, and when you are at the epicenter of this, it is not a small thing. It is not something that you can just ignore. That's not how it works. And if you truly think that it's just something you can just ignore and move on with your life, then you've never been through something like this. It's not a small thing that people do this without paying attention or reading or looking at any of the other things that you've done or looking at any context at all. It's not a small thing, especially for the side that claims to be the side of facts and logic and reason and data. They're not. They're just as emotionally driven as the left, if not more so.
At the time. And I cannot even begin to explain how it feels to have to leave politics because you are being punished by a government for speaking out about issues you deeply, deeply care about, sacrificing your life, your career, your ability to see family and friends, to travel. I was banned from the US for 2 years. Holy. Sacrificing all of this and being forced to quit because of all those sacrifices I made for something I truly, truly believed in. And then to have that silence, that forced silence from the government, be used to turn everyone that I had fought for against me.
Yeah.
And to have everyone say I was a fraud.
Imagine. I cannot imagine.
Like, I can't even begin to explain how that makes one feel. My biggest regret, I've always felt like all of this is just too much to explain. Too much to explain, too complicated. I'm going to have so many people come after me.
And it's unnecessary. That's the thing of all of this. And that's like what I've thought every time something like this has happened to me. Like, it is completely and totally unnecessary. It adds no value at all to the discourse. It adds no value at all to anyone's life. It is completely and totally unnecessary to attack people like this. But this is what happens. This is what happens.
Legally for talking about this stuff. I'm going to have, you know, the government come after me for talking about what they did to me. I was so scared to talk about all of this for so long, but I really, really deeply regret that I didn't make this my comeback video and just tell you all what had happened. And I'm sorry for that. I genuinely am sorry. I was really angry with a lot of people who just believed all of these things with no evidence. I was really angry at my audience, a lot of people. And I kind of set that aside, though, and I remembered the things I believed about Margaret. I remember the things I believed about Alum. I remember believing these things just because Milo said them, right? So what ground do I have to stand on to be mad at other people for just believing this big figure, especially when I didn't tell my side of the story? And I'm sorry that I'm just getting the bravery now to talk about it, because I probably could have done a lot more good if I had just been honest about this all from the start. Apparently, I could be honest about every single thing in politics that I saw, except about the corruption in my own political movement, because that was hard. They're my team. They were the only thing I had standing with me against the world. And I didn't want to break that. I would rather lose my reputation, and I would rather have everyone hate me than to attack this entity I believed in so much. But honestly, now looking back at it, it needed a cleanse. And a lot of people look at this and they look back on 2016. They look back on the dissident right with a lot of nostalgia, and they think it's such a shame that all of this went away, that it was censored and attacked by the government and all of these NGOs, and that it was dismantled so unjustly. And I hope you can kind of understand why I don't have that same nostalgia. I don't. And I actually think that the dissident right failed because the world is a just place.
Yeah, I agree. Oh my God.
And that's a scary thing for me to say. I am sorry that the people who represented you were so up and squandered so much of your money and trust. And that's why I don't have that same nostalgia. And it was my job. It was my job to tell you all this stuff. It was my job to tell you the truth, but it was so hard to spoil what so many people believed in at the time.
I want to say, like, what she just said, like, the dissident right failed because the world is a fair and just place. That's what I've been trying to tell you guys. You can't treat people like this and expect to be successful. You can't treat people like this after they give up their lives for you and then expect them to be expect you to be successful. It doesn't work like that, because it's not even about these people. As we're seeing in here, it's not about Lauren. It's not about me. It's not about anyone else that they have gone after like this, of which I'm sure there are many people who will never be as brave to tell their stories. And it's not about that. It's about, like, this is what this movement is. It prioritizes the wrong things. And it could be anyone. It could be anyone in my chair, and the result would be the same. They prioritize the wrong things. Lauren is exactly right that it is a fair and just outcome that, you know, things are going the way they are. And if you don't change your behaviors, then things are just going to keep going like this. And that's reality. I keep saying, like, she wants to let the audience off the hook. That's her business. That's fine. I will not let the audience off the hook. The audience is what drives this. If the audience was telling no to the influencers who are doing this bullshit, then the influencers would get the message and stop. If the audience would stop giving money to the influencers who are doing this bullshit, the influencers would stop. If they would rise up against them in the comments, the influencers would stop. If they would rise up against them on Twitter, the influencers would stop. They would learn very quickly. Remember, their priority is money and status. If they see that the audience is going to turn against them when they do this bullshit, they will stop doing it. But if you don't want to raise your voice and tell that to them, if you say, oh, it's just not any of my business and I just really want to watch YouTube, then don't be surprised when good people quit and you are left with nothing else but shills. That's what you've asked for. It's what you've asked for by virtue of not standing up and doing the right thing. This is a fair and just outcome. The outcome that you get will be the sum total of your contributions. If you contribute nothing when good people are attacked, then do not expect those people to be there to stand up for you and to fight for you and defend you because you didn't do it for them when they needed you to. You couldn't even look at an article and say, does that sound right? Just go right for the mean comment. You go right for the fucking Twitter. You go right for the, you were just always a leftist. Well, that's what they do with me. You get what you fucking deserve, man. You get what you fucking deserve.
Is really hard for me to do, and I'm only just kind of getting the confidence to do that. I think some of the most broken people get involved in politics for exactly that reason. They're broken and they want to know why they're broken and why the world is so broken around them. But it doesn't change the fact that so many horrible things were done. And I hope that some of you understand why I've come and taken a bit more nuanced approach to things after cults of personality and just believing what the right wing said did so much harm to me. Not actually being critical of your own side did so much harm to me and people I care about. So as much as I do believe in the ideals of conservatism, I'm very critical as well. I'm very, very critical for exactly these reasons and the experiences I've been through. So, wow, it's getting dark out. I've been talking to y'all all day. I should have known this video was going to take this long to film. It's a lot, but it's still not over somehow. Fast forward to 2020. I'm a mom now. Life's changed a lot. I'm in Australia, and I finally got news that I was on a more substantive visa, one that was not going to be compromised by this back use stuff. And I got to this point where I was like, I can talk to you guys again. I can do what I love. I can speak about the world and the issues that I cared about. Politics scared me at that point still, everything I'd been through, but I wanted to come back. I wanted to come back and talk to you all again. And I made that video, why I left and why I'm back, where I wasn't entirely honest. Told you the truth, but I left out most of it. My fault. And when I finally got the courage to at least return, I wasn't quite ready to talk about all this stuff. Who came out of the woodworks? I'd already talked about Tommy, I already talked about Faith, I already talked about Milo and all these people that I looked up to so much as heroes in the dissident right that had just destroyed and black-pilled my brain on politics. And of course, one more had to come out for a final backstab, and it was none other than Paul Joseph Watson.
I have no familiarity with Paul Joseph Watson at all, other than I know his name, and there's that imagine my shock meme that like you see everywhere. But this dude gives me I've literally never watched his content. I have no idea what this dude thinks or who he is. But he gives me really skeezy bad vibes, like bad, like really smarmy vibes. So I'm not liking where this is going.
After I came out with my video saying, I'm back to talk to you guys again. I just want to deal with the truth. I want to make documentaries again. I want to just have this cultural conversation, do what I love. Of course, I had all of the people that still believed the Milo article. I knew it was a big deal when it came out, but I didn't think there would be that many people that still remembered it and thought about it. But there were. There were a lot of people who still believed it uncritically at the time. And one person that was right out of the gate, ready to slam down that narrative again, was Paul, who, right when I made my video, decided to tweet out, right-wing YouTuber suddenly returns, claiming to be nuanced centrist, which I never said, having disappeared at the exact point where everyone else was fucked over and banned for the last 18 months, having thrown them under the bus by funding the very people responsible for all that. Inauthentic. And this was just one of many tweets he sent about me that day, saying I was a grifter, I was inauthentic, I was an evil Antifa spy, all of this stuff. The only real accusation I could discern from Paul's cocaine-fueled rants about me on Twitter was that I had retired at the exact moment when InfoWars and all these other people were being banned. And to that, I would say I deeply apologize that my pregnancy and visa issues were so rude as to not pay attention to the news cycle. But the funny thing about this is the exact thing that Paul is attacking me for here, the exact issue that he is bemoaning me for, is exactly what Paul did at the time. In
Ironclad
fact,
law
Alex
of woke
Jones reached out to
projection.
Karlyn right when InfoWars was being banned off everything and said this: Paul has gotten real tense about promoting InfoWars or anything now that this ban has happened.
Yep.
And he's not being really responsive. So it's all this timidness and other stuff, Alex complained in a voice note. Everyone else I work with is starting to get really nebulous. So to Paul, for this accusation, I say, physician, heal thyself. You have almost completely cut yourself off from InfoWars to protect yourself, and you have the audacity to accuse me of doing just that. But worse than all of that is why Paul is attacking me. Because of course, when we're dealing with these figures from the dissident right, it can't just be that he has this true faith and needs to find the frauds in the movement to expose them to the right. No, there has to be a personal factor to it.
Well, imagine my shock. Imagine my shock. Imagine my shock. Well, imagine my shock.
I don't like to talk about these things publicly. I don't think it is good manners in any regard, but my father always told me, Lauren, don't start a fight, but finish one. So the last time I saw Paul Joseph Watson, we went on a date. Perhaps my worst crime in politics. He took me to a restaurant in Battersea. It was horrendous dinner conversation, if I'm being honest, but we went back to his flat, chatted for a few hours, had cigars, and he wanted to sleep with me, like a good conservative influencer, right? And I'm no saint. I'm not a perfect person, and I'm not going to pretend to be. But at that time, I had absolutely decided I was looking for something serious. I wanted a family. I didn't want just a one-night stand. So I told Paul that. I said, you know what? No, I'm sorry. I'm looking for something serious. And he walked me to his door, questioned me a few times on it, asked me to stay, and I said, no. Goodbye. I'm leaving. And ever since that day I rejected him, I have received nothing but insanity from the man, from crazy text messages at 4 a.m, cocaine-fueled rants that go on for hours, sending me Kanye lyrics, asking me to go on dates with him in Europe. It has genuinely been insane. And of course, spreading gossip that I'm an Antifa spy, a slut, a whore, all of these things.
Well, golly gee, I have no experience at all with telling someone that I'm not going to leave my husband for him and then going on an 8-month fucking Twitter bender. I have no experience with this at all. Yeah.
Things, because what better name to call a girl who won't sleep with you than a whore, right? But just, I have never, ever seen a man react so badly to rejection. I've never seen a man act so jilted, so scorned. And you know what, Paul? If you want to deny any of this, if you want to pretend that you truly were on some moral crusade against the frauds and the inauthentic people in the movement, as if you don't have a few things to say about that, you can deny all of this. And I'd be happy, more than happy, to provide more evidence for it. But I don't think you want me to do that. So, well, okay, I'll be honest with you all. Half of this is for selfish reasons. I don't even know if I'd say selfish. I just want to tell my side of the story. I just finally want people to hear my side because I've stayed silent for so long.
It's gotta feel good for her, man.
So much to tell,
It's
and
gotta
this is only
feel
1%
really
of it,
fucking
if that.
good.
And then the other half is genuinely for you. You deserve to hear all of this. You deserve to hear the truth of what was going on behind the scenes. And my loyalty to this movement, not wanting to expose these people that so many people look up to, not wanting to talk about the truth of conservatism because we've got the left to go after. We've got all this insane progressivism to go after. We can't be infighting. What happened is that by ignoring the problems in my own side to try to protect it, I just allowed a lot of toxicity to corrode it from the inside. And it collapsed anyways. It collapsed anyways, and deservingly so. I can't sit here and pretend like the larger half of what happened to the dissident right wasn't entirely their own fault. You can't fix anything if you don't admit to yourself that you had faults.
Right.
You can't. The selfishness, the ego, the cult of personality, believing people just because they were big and famous and leaders of the movement. That was what was our downfall. That was the downfall of the dissident right.
Yep.
And all I can do is hope that maybe out of its ashes, we can create something more genuine. You guys, the actual people who this is about, can make something more genuine because it's us over here, the figures. Me not telling you any of this, me covering it all up to protect my side, that was a up. That was me fucking up. Everyone else doing things for fame, ego, and money, not everyone, but a lot of people, fuck up. Fuck ups that no one wanted to acknowledge, no one wanted to talk about. We on the right talk all day about the problems with the corporate media, and we're right. There are problems. They are silencing people, covering up stories, lying about facts. They've got all sorts of nefarious figures funding their journalism, all sorts of nefarious figures reporting the news that have all of this horrible stuff about them covered up. And we're right to talk about that. But how can we claim to be any better when we have the same sort of stuff happening on our own side and have for years? One of the things that Paul Joseph Watson tweeted when I came back was, Lauren has one chance to bend the knee to me, or I'm going to expose everything on her. I never bent the knee to him, and he never exposed anything on me, but I've certainly had those threats made before and being more serious. And I've certainly, even if they didn't have anything on me, they'd just publish lies like Milo did, right?
Yep.
To be honest, behind the scenes in the dissident right, it felt a lot like one big Mexican standoff. Everyone holding blackmail on each other, saying, if you don't support me, no matter what I do, no matter how much money I steal or what I do wrong, well, I got this blackmail gun on you. You did cocaine with me this day. You saw a hooker with me that day.
Yep. You made a
just
joke
got
I don't like or
blackmail
can
guns on each
fucking
other, saying,
twist
"You
out of
better
context."
Stick to the script or else.
Yep.
And there's no way that anyone can be honest in that environment. No way. Especially when you get excommunicated from your audience get told you're a fraud. I think that was actually one of the biggest reasons that Karlyn, George, and I were probably kicked out of the right and had so much lies spread about us, was because we knew too much and we didn't want to be a part of it anymore.
Yep.
We didn't want to talk to anyone anymore. We didn't want to be involved. We just wanted to do our own thing. And
I completely agree with this. I agree with everything she's saying, but I really think that one of the reasons the right came at me hard is I fucking left. I left after when people started saying, do LGBT people really belong in the MAGA movement? And I started seeing this rise of like the moral majority. I was like, F this. I don't want any part of this. I didn't sign up for this to be part of like a moral majority part 2. And I saw that starting to happen in early 2021. And so I left and I joined the Libertarians. And I wasn't even talking about what was going on in the right. I was talking about like the anti-CRT stuff, which I'm sorry, like the anti-woke space, the anti-CRT space is not purely a right-wing movement. There are a lot of politically homeless people in it. There are a lot of libertarians in it. There are a lot of people who they're even like Democrats and like disaffected liberals in it. And it's like, that's not something that the right owns, and I'm allowed to talk about it because I literally wrote a fucking book on it. And no, but I left. I became a libertarian, and it was after I became a libertarian that the attacks started getting really bad because I fucking left. I think there's truth to what she's saying. I think when people reject them, again, I've talked about this, like the right is weirdly personal around around people that are that they've claimed as theirs. And I think that with me, they really did feel like they won one and they didn't. And even though I was always honest with them about that, it was so funny to me after, like, I'll even pull this up. I'll even pull up the same Cassandra Fairbanks tweet because I saw it on my screen that I showed in the last reaction. Like, she's saying, can the left take her back, please? Ew. I had joined the Libertarians months before this. I was actively involved with the LPNH months before this. I was actively involved with the Mises Caucus. I was talking publicly about this. I was like, F you guys, like, I'm out. And so to have Cassandra Fairbanks, who claims to be a journalist, tweet like, take her back, left, take her back, it's like she's insinuating I'm still part of the right. It was like, you know what this was for me? It was like saying, I quit. I'm done. I quit. It's my last day. I'm turning in my letter of resignation. Bye. And then 2 months later, having the boss come back and say, you can't quit. You're fired. That's what this experience was like for me. That was when they started getting really bad, when they realized that, like, no, I really am gone because I don't want to be part of your movement anymore. Sorry. Like, it's too bad. And, everything Lauren is saying is just like, you can tell that she's been sitting on this and thinking about this for a really, really long time. And she's been highly reflective about it. You can tell, like, she really gets it. And it must feel so good for her to put this out. It must feel so good for her to say all of these things. I'm really kind of in awe, to be honest.
Knew too much. And if you're not going to be a part of it, if you try to walk away from the Mexican standoff, well, everyone's going to turn their guns to you and shoot you, right?
Yep.
And you're not going to have an audience. You're not going to have people everyone's going to look and be like, why are all of these wonderful figures that do nothing wrong and have nothing wrong with them, why do they all hate you?
Oh my God, I hear that all the time. Karlyn, why does everyone hate you? Why does everyone have a problem with you? You always seem to be fighting with people. Why does everyone have a problem with you? And you can't be like, everyone doesn't have a problem with me. It's these specific people. I have laid this out for people on like multiple occasions. I'm like, Carrie Smith is the epicenter of this bullshit, and it all stems out from there. And it just so happens that every single person who has a problem with me is connected to this one person who has been rallying people against me since October of 2020 because she's upset that I have more YouTube subscribers than she does. And it's like, you can't tell. Like, I just don't understand why everyone hates Karlyn. Why does everyone everyone doesn't have a problem with me? It is just a complete untruth. And she's saying the same thing. It's like, everyone around, Lauren, why does everyone have a problem with you? Why does everyone seem to dislike you? Why does everyone have gossip on you? Why does everyone have dirt on you? It's like, she's saying the same thing, and you can't defend yourself against that, because even if you're like, I'm the only person of this group that actually has a long-term relationship that's been married for over 10 years. I literally got, and this explains why too. It explains why the horde of idiots that have been perpetrating this bullshit on me for a year and a half, like, they lost their shit when I got nominated for governor by the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. They absolutely lost their shit. and they lose their shit anytime the libertarians support me. Like anytime there's any sort of success or victory, and it's like the reason that is because it blows their entire narrative that no one supports Karlyn and no one likes her and everyone hates her and she has fights with everyone. Like the whole idea that I got nominated for a statewide office from a political party. Okay, they're the libertarians. Like, let's be not, you know, it's not like a major party or anything, but I'm definitely not going to win. Even though I'm polling at 8%, which is a little weird, but like it blows their entire narrative, and that's why it makes them so pissed off. And it's like I cannot imagine what this must have been like for her. I would, if I couldn't speak publicly about the things that they put me through, I would be pulling my hair out. This must feel so good. It must be such vindication. I really hope she's not getting a lot of backlash. I'll talk more about that when we wrap up.
Why do they all hate you, right? Yeah, I'm glad that I had to quit for a bit. Looking back, as much as it was hard, it was good to be back in the real world, and I'm far more connected to the real world now than I was before, and that's important because I can actually ground myself. There's far too little grounding involved in being a public figure and a political figure, and it's all...
That's very true.
People lose themselves. These people...
Oh, I want to comment on that. So I know we only have like 2 minutes left of this, but I want to comment on that. Like, people lose themselves in this. I realized the same thing. I've been taking it really easy on the news and on the politics since I did my cry breakdown video a couple weeks ago, like a month and a half ago, like whenever that happened. I don't even know anymore. A month ago, I don't know. And I gotta tell you, I feel so much better. I really felt like I wasn't able to communicate with normal people. I was like living in this completely distorted reality because of politics and the culture stuff. And I wasn't even able to engage in normal conversations with like normal average people anymore. And pulling back from it and focusing on other things, it's made me feel like a lot better. And I think that when people get sucked into this, they really do lose their minds in this. They really do.
People in these figures you watch, they aren't perfect people. I'm not a perfect person. And you never want to disappoint your audience. You never want them to look at you and think like, I believed in you. I believed that you were like this hero, like so many people have disappointed me. But I think that was the mistake from the start, was trying to be heroes instead of just being people that are confused and broken in this world as well and trying to make sense of it all and just being honest. And hopefully I'll get to be more honest going forward, and hopefully maybe this video will convince more people to be more honest going forward about everything that's going on in the background.
I hope so too. I really do.
Yeah, I love you all. I care for you. I've cared for you the whole time. I've never been a fraud or lying. I've never wanted to hurt any of you. I really, really, really believed in this all. And I'm sorry that I probably hurt a lot of you by keeping this all to myself. But it felt good to say it. It felt good to say it all.
Wow.
I'm telling you, you're coming along at a very dangerous time for rock and roll. The war is over. They won. And they will ruin rock and roll.
All right.
And strangle everything we love.
Well, I think we're going to hear music now. I don't want to get another copyright thing, so I'm going to end it there. But, wow. I really hope she's not getting a lot of backlash for this. I'm sure she's getting some. I think that the saving grace of this might be that Milo is just not visible right now. At least, I mean, I don't see him. Like, if I wanted to seek out Milo Yiannopoulos, I'm sure I could find him. In fact, maybe I'll do that tonight. Maybe I will go on to Milo's secret Telegram group that I am in. Like, not the official, but like the other one. He used to only open it up for membership every once in a while, and I happened to catch him one day when he had it open, and so maybe I'll go see what Milo and Paul Joseph Watson and all the people are saying about this in the bowels of the internet. I've never even looked at Paul Joseph Watson's Twitter in my life. I have no idea who the guy is. I really don't. But I really hope, I think that part of why she might not be getting as much is simply because like these figures aren't really as visible anyway. I mean, well, Alex Jones, sure, but like Alex Jones wasn't even in the documentary. She's very complimentary of him. So that, I mean, I don't think that, but you know, I really do hope she gets a positive response. And I think most of all, I hope people listen. I hope they listen. Because she told the truth about, okay, I don't know all the details of all the situations, so I can't say that she universally told the truth about every person in every situation. I'm sure there are other sides, whatever. But in regards to the experiences and the outcome and the impact of what they're doing, she told the truth. That is a truthful picture of the right. And people need to listen to it. I have experienced on a smaller scale many of the things that she's talked about. I've seen it directly with my own eyes. I've watched it happen to other people. And some of it has happened to me. And it is the truth. And it does feel really good to know that I'm not the only one that this stuff has happened to, even though I wish it didn't happen to anybody. And I'm really glad that she told the story. I'm really glad. And now I guess we'll see what happens. But Lauren, you've got a new fan in me. I will support your work, whatever you do. Not that that probably means anything to you. I've never spoken to you. I don't know you, but I will absolutely be paying attention to what she does. And I will support her in whatever way I can. Because, you know, I'm just a random person that she doesn't know. But she gave me a gift in doing that documentary. Like, in ways that it's a relief. It's a relief to know that that's just the way they are. That doesn't make it a good thing. I hope that people on the right work to change it. It's not my job to change you guys. It's not her job to change you guys. You have to want to change yourselves. And if you support bad people who do bad things, then don't expect people to support you when you need it. All of your actions have consequences. How you treat people matters. And it's not about, well, you have a tone I don't like, so I'm going to spread vicious lies about you on the internet, or you blocked me on Twitter, and so I'm entitled to spew nonsense. You're not a good person if you do those things, and you're not helping, and you're not winning anything. You're just destroying your own movement from the inside. And maybe now that you've heard that from someone else, maybe you'll start listening. I really hope you do. I'm cool with the libertarians. I'm sticking with the libertarians. There are so many people on the right and especially like the little hater Twitter horde I have that like live to obsess about me every day. They're like, any minute now, Karlyn's going to turn on the libertarians. Any minute, the libertarians are going to discover who she really is. Nah, dude, not going to happen. I found my home. I'm really happy there. Mostly because they don't buy into any of this bullshit. Okay, I agree with them politically too, and you know, all that stuff. Anyway, it's 1 a.m. But I'm really glad I stayed up to watch the whole thing. It was absolutely worth it. And thank you to everyone who followed along with this reaction with me. I know that like a lot of you had already watched it and you're like watching it again with the reaction. And I hope I've done it justice, or at least I've been able to maybe like supplement it with some other dimension to say like, she's not crazy. She's telling the truth. She's telling the truth. She's not the only one that experienced this. I'm not the one that only experienced this either. I know of other people who have experienced this. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. They have to tell their own stories. But thank you for hanging with me for 3. I thought it was going to be 4, but it ended up being 3 reaction videos. And that's all I have, guys. Take care. We'll see you soon.